The energy shields flickered and died just as Commander Jack Hayes fired the last plasma round into the Krell command ship. The explosion lit up the void like a dying star. Prim. His fighter spun through the debris field, alarms screaming, oxygen dropping fast. "Hayes, get out of there!" Lieutenant Claire Morton's voice cracked through the static. He didn't respond. Couldn't. The cockpit was filling with smoke and his left arm hung useless at his side. Blood floated in crimson spheres around him. The battle was over. Humanity had won. The Krell Armada was shattered, their invasion fleet reduced to burning wreckage across 3 star systems. But Jack Hayes was dying. His fighter tumbled toward the nearest gravity well, a frozen moon orbiting the contested world of Vareth Prime. He tried the thrusters. Nothing. Tried the emergency beacon. Dead. The crash would kill him if the cold didn't get him first. The moon's surface rushed up faster than he expected. Ice and rock filled his vision. Impact threw him against his harness hard enough to crack ribs, Metal shrieked. The canopy shattered. Frozen air burned his lungs. Then silence. He woke to warmth and light. Impossible. He should be dead. Should be frozen solid in the wreckage of his fighter. Instead, he lay on something soft. The air smelled like spring flowers and ozone. His wounds were bandaged. His arm was in a proper splint. Jack opened his eyes and saw her. She stood beside his bed, tall and elegant, with skin that seemed to glow with its own light. Her eyes were violet, her hair silver like starlight. She wore robes that shifted colors with each movement, and on her head sat a crown of crystalline points that hummed with power. "You're awake," she said. Her voice carried the weight of authority. "Good. I have questions." He tried to sit up. Pain lanced through his chest. "Don't move, human." "Your species heals slowly." She stepped closer, studying him like a scientist might study a specimen. "I am Princess Lyra Theon, sovereign ruler of the Varath Collective. You crashed on my moon. My guards brought you to my flagship." Jack's throat was dry. "The battle?" "Your forces won. The Krell are retreating across all fronts. Their commanders are dead." Her expression was unreadable. "My intelligence officers tell me you were responsible for the killing blow, that you flew directly into their command ship's reactor core and somehow survived long enough to escape." "Barely," he managed. "Barely," she repeated. She circled his bed slowly. "The Vareth Collective remained neutral in this war. We watched humanity fight the Krell for 3 years. We expected you to lose. Everyone expected you to lose. We don't lose," Jack said. Princess Lyra stopped. Those violet eyes fixed on him with sudden intensity. "No," she said quietly. "Apparently you don't. And now I need to understand why." Princess Lyra dismissed her guards with a gesture. The door sealed behind them with a soft hiss. Jack watched her move to the observation window, her robes trailing like liquid mercury. Beyond the transparent hull, the debris field still glowed with residual heat from the battle. 3 years ago, the Krell Dominion controlled 47 star systems, she said. Their military was undefeated in 2 centuries of expansion. They had conquered species with technology far beyond yours. Races that had mastered quantum engineering, biological warfare, dimensional tactics. She turned to face him. Humanity had barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Your weapons were primitive. Your ships were slow. Every strategic analysis predicted your extinction within 6 months. Jack shifted against the pillows. The pain in his chest was dulling to a manageable ache. Predictions aren't reality. No, they certainly aren't. Lyra approached the bed again. Instead, you held them at Earth. Then you pushed them back. System by system, battle by battle, you fought with a ferocity that made no tactical sense. You sacrificed entire fleets for minor victories. You sent soldiers on suicide missions that somehow succeeded. You turned civilian ships into weapons. You militarized children barely old enough to fly. We did what we had to do. You did what no other species would do. Her voice carried something between admiration and horror. The Krell burned the surface of Mars. They glassed the colony on Europa. They killed 16 billion humans in the first year alone. Any other civilization would have sued for peace, would have surrendered, would have accepted subjugation to save what remained. Jack met her eyes. We're not any other civilization." Lyra was silent for a long moment. Then she pulled a chair close to his bed and sat. The motion was surprisingly casual for someone wearing a crown. "Tell me about the Battle of Saturn's Gate," she said. "Why?" "Because I need to understand. The Vareth Collective is deciding whether to make formal contact with humanity, whether to offer alliance, trade, diplomatic relations. But we are cautious, Commander Hayes. We have survived for 10,000 years by choosing our allies carefully, by understanding who we invite into our sphere." Jack closed his eyes, remembering. Saturn's Gate was a trap. The Krell knew we'd try to retake the shipyards there. They had 3 dreadnoughts waiting in ambush. We had 1 carrier and a destroyer wing. You were outnumbered 5-1. We were outnumbered worse than that. But Captain Ryan Brooks didn't retreat. He ordered the carrier to ram the lead dreadnought while the destroyers targeted the reactor cores of the other 2. We lost the carrier, lost 4 destroyers, lost 8,000 crew. Jack opened his eyes. We also won. We retook Saturn's Gate and turned their own shipyards against them, built the fleet that eventually broke their siege of Earth. 8,000 dead for a shipyard. 8,000 dead for survival. Lyra leaned back. Her crown caught the light from the observation window, scattering rainbow patterns across the walls. The Krell envoy came to me after that battle, wanted the Vareth Collective to join their invasion, promised us human territories as payment. Jack's jaw tightened. "What did you say?" "I said no, not because I sympathized with humanity. I didn't. I said no because I realized something watching that battle." She paused. The Krell were going to lose. Not immediately, not easily, but eventually, inevitably, they were going to lose. Because they were fighting a species that would burn down the galaxy before accepting defeat. You were right, I was, and that terrifies me, Commander Hayes. Lyra stood, moving to the observation window again. Because now, the war is over. The Krell are broken, and humanity stands victorious with a battle-hardened fleet, advanced captured technology, and a proven willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. She looked back at him. "So I need to know, what does humanity do now? What does a species like yours do with peace?" Jack struggled to sit up properly. Pain shot through his ribs, but he pushed through it. "We rebuild. We mourn. We try to make sure it never happens again. By conquering others first, by making sure no one can do to us what the Krell tried to do." Lyra's expression was unreadable. "That's what I was afraid you'd say. Feel name. The Princess Queen discovers the human warrior who won the war.txt. The door opened without warning. A Vareth officer entered, his skin shimmering blue instead of Lyra's pale gold. He wore armor that seemed grown rather than manufactured, organic plates that shifted with his movements. He stopped short when he saw the princess sitting casually beside a human's bed. "Your Majesty, the Council demands your presence. They've learned you're harboring the human commander." Lyra didn't stand. "Tell the Council I'll attend when I'm finished. They insist it's urgent. There are reports of human ships entering Vareth space. Unmarked vessels. The Council believes it's a scouting force for invasion." Jack tried to swing his legs off the bed. "That's not possible. Our fleet is regrouping near Earth. We're not invading anyone." The officer's hand moved to his weapon. "A human's word means nothing here. Captain Venn, lower your hand." Lyra's voice carried absolute authority. The officer obeyed immediately. She turned to Jack. "Can you walk? If I have to, come with me, both of you." The corridors of the Vareth flagship were unlike anything Jack had seen. Walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Gravity shifted subtly as they moved between sections. Crew members stopped and bowed as Lyra passed, their eyes tracking Jack with undisguised hostility. They entered a vast circular chamber. 20 Varath nobles sat in raised seats arranged in a perfect ring. At the center, a holographic display showed 3 human destroyers crossing into Vareth territory. The ship's signatures were familiar. Too familiar. "Those are search and rescue vessels," Jack said immediately. "See the medical markings? They're looking for survivors from the battle." "Or surveying our defenses," said an elderly Virath with deep green skin. His crown was larger than Lyra's, more ornate. Princess, you bring the enemy into our council chamber. Have you lost your mind? High Chancellor Cove, Commander Hayes is not our enemy. He's a witness to what humanity truly is. A killer? Another counselor spat. A butcher who sacrificed his own people like animals. Jack felt anger rising but kept his voice level. I sacrificed volunteers. Every person who died in this war chose to fight. Chose to stand against extinction. Noble words from a species that turned cargo haulers into bombs, Cove said. That strapped nuclear weapons to mining drones. That sent children into combat. We sent everyone who could fight, because if we lost, there wouldn't be any children left to protect. The hologram shifted. New images appeared. Footage from the war. Human ships ramming Krell dreadnoughts. Space stations self-destructing to take out enemy formations. Soldiers in damaged suits fighting hand-to-hand in decompressed corridors. It was brutal. Desperate. Utterly ruthless. This is what concerns us, Cove continued. Not your victory, Commander. Your methods. The Verith have fought many wars. We understand sacrifice, but we fight with honor, with restraint, with consideration for the future. You fight like cornered animals. We were cornered animals, Jack shot back. The Krell didn't offer terms, didn't take prisoners. They came to erase us. So yes, we fought without restraint. Without honor, if that's what you want to call it. We fought to survive, and now you've survived, said a female counselor with silver markings across her face. What happens when another species looks at you wrong? When a trade dispute turns bitter? When someone threatens human interests? Will you unleash this same savagery on them? Lyra stepped forward before Jack could respond. That's the question, isn't it? The question that determines whether the Verath Collective offers alliance or isolation. Whether we trade with humanity or quarantine them? She looked at Jack. Answer honestly, Commander, not as a diplomat. As a soldier who's seen the worst of war. What will humanity become now that the existential threat is gone? The chamber fell silent. Every eye focused on Jack. He felt the weight of their judgment, their fear. Humanity's entire future might rest on his next words. He took a breath. Twisty, his ribs screamed in protest. I don't know, he said finally. I can't promise we'll be peaceful. Can't guarantee we won't defend our interests aggressively. We're a young species. We're traumatized, angry. We've lost too many people to ever forget what was done to us. He met Lyra's violet eyes. But I can tell you this. Everything we did, every brutal tactic, every sacrifice, it all came from one place. Love. Love for our world, our families, our future. We didn't fight because we're monsters. We fought because we refused to let monsters win. Kova's expression didn't change. Love and rage are separated by the thinnest of lines. Human, maybe, Jack agreed. But love is still what drives us. And if you give us a chance, maybe we can prove that's enough. The hologram flickered. The human rescue ships were holding position at the border, waiting for clearance. Lyra looked at her council. Cast your votes. Do we open dialogue with humanity, or do we close our borders? Field name. The Princess Queen discovers the human warrior who won the war. Text dash. The votes split exactly down the middle. 10 for contact, 10 for isolation. The holographic tally hung in the air like an accusation. Cove's face darkened with frustration. A tie means nothing changes, he said. We maintain current protocols. No contact, no trade, no alliance. A tie means the decision falls to me, Lyra corrected. As is tradition when the council cannot agree. Your Majesty, you're too close to this. You pulled this human from the wreckage yourself. You've spent hours with him. Your judgment is compromised. Lyra's eyes flashed with something dangerous. High Chancellor, are you suggesting I'm incapable of ruling? Cove backtracked immediately. I'm suggesting caution. This decision will echo for generations. Then let me add information to help that echo. Lyra gestured, and the hologram changed again. New footage appeared. Not from the war. Something else entirely. 3 days ago, one of our research outposts detected a distress signal. A Krell civilian transport. Damaged in the retreat. Life support failing. 200 non-combatants aboard. Mostly young, according to our scans. The council members leaned forward. Jack felt his stomach twist. The nearest help was a human patrol group, Lyra continued. Destroyer Squadron Delta 9, still operating near the front lines. They intercepted the transmission. The hologram showed human ships approaching the Krell transport. Jack recognized the destroyer configuration. He'd served with Delta 9's commander, Lieutenant Paul Griffin. Good officer, solid tactician. Watch, Lyra said quietly. The human destroyers surrounded the Krell ship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then docking tubes extended, airlocks connected. Human Marines crossed over in full combat gear. They boarded a ship full of children from the species that killed 16 billion of them, Lyra said. The species that burned their colonies and glassed their moons. What do you think happened next? Several counselors looked uncomfortable. Covey's expression was grim. The hologram showed the interior of the Krell transport. Human Marines moving through corridors. Krell civilians cowering against walls, their insectoid bodies trembling. Translucent carapaces hiding behind adults. Then one Marine removed his helmet. Paul Griffin. He knelt down to a Krell child's level, hands open and empty. Spoke into a translator. The audio crackled through. We're here to help. We're going to fix your ship and give you supplies. You're safe now. The Krell civilians stared in disbelief. So did half the council. The footage continued. Human engineers repairing Krell systems. Medics treating Krell wounded. Supply crates being transferred. Food, medicine. Griffin stood in the transport's command center, speaking with a Krell elder. Your military attacked us. You didn't. We're not going to punish children for what soldiers did. The Krell elder's translator struggled with the response. Why? Why help us? Griffin was quiet for a moment. Because the war's over, and we don't want to become what we were fighting against. The hologram faded. The council chamber was absolutely silent. Jack hadn't known about this, hadn't heard. But it didn't surprise him. Paul had always been decent. Always talked about going home, opening a school, teaching kids. Of course he'd help. The human patrol group escorted the transport to neutral space, Lyra said. Made sure they had enough resources to reach a safe system. Then they continued their patrol. No demands, no conditions. They just helped. She turned to face the council directly. This is also what humanity is. Not just the warriors who ram ships into enemy formations. Also the warriors who stop to save enemy children. Covey shook his head. One act of mercy doesn't define a species. Neither does one act of brutality, Lyra countered. But we've been judging them only by their worst moments. Only by what they did to survive. Perhaps we should also consider what they chose to do when survival was no longer at stake. A younger counselor spoke up, her voice uncertain. The human ships at our border. The rescue vessels. What if we allowed them entry? Observed how they conduct themselves in Verith space? A test, another counselor mused. Limited contact. Supervised. If they prove trustworthy, we expand relations. If not, we seal the borders. Covey looked like he wanted to argue but couldn't find the angle. And who supervises this test? All eyes turned to Lyra. She smiled slightly. I volunteer. I'll take Commander Hayes back to his people personally. Open initial dialogue. Assess their intentions firsthand. That's too dangerous, Captain Venn protested. You can't put yourself at risk with these humans, Jack spoke up. She won't be at risk. I guarantee her safety. Your guarantee means nothing, Venn snapped. Then let me prove it means something. Jack forced himself to stand fully, ignoring the pain. Princess Lyra saved my life. My people will honor that. We'll honor her. I'll make sure of it. Lyra studied him for a long moment. Then she turned back to the council. I'm going. Vote again. Allow limited contact with human forces under my direct supervision, or maintain isolation. This time the vote wasn't close. 15-5 in favor. Covey stood slowly. Your Majesty, if you're wrong about them, if they prove to be the threat we fear, then I'll be the first to know, Lyra said calmly, and the first to act. But I don't believe I'm wrong. I think humanity might be exactly what the galaxy needs right now. A species that knows how to fight, how to survive, and how to show mercy when the fighting's done. She gestured to Jack. Come, Commander. Let's return you to your people and see if they're worthy of the faith I'm placing in them. Field name: The Princess Queen discovers the human warrior who won the war. .txt. The Verath diplomatic shuttle was smaller than Jack expected. Sleeker. It moved through space like a living thing. Organic curves instead of human angular design. Lyra piloted it herself, her hands moving across controls that responded to touch and thought in equal measure. You don't need a crew? Jack asked from the co-pilot's seat. His ribs were tightly wrapped now, proper medical treatment making movement almost bearable. The ship is grown, not built. It responds to me specifically, to my neural patterns. Lyra adjusted their course toward the human rescue vessels. It would be useless to anyone else. That seems inefficient. That seems secure. She glanced at him. Your species builds machines that anyone can operate. Any enemy can steal and use against you. We build extensions of ourselves. The human destroyers grew larger in the viewport. Jack could see their battle damage now. Scorched hulls, makeshift repairs. These ships had been in the thick of it. They're hailing us, Lyra said, demanding identification. Their weapons are charging. Let me talk to them. Jack leaned toward the communication panel. Lyra nodded and opened the channel. Unidentified vessel, this is Captain Danny Cole of the UHS Defiant. You are in restricted space. Identify immediately or we will open fire. Jack smiled despite himself. Danny Cole. They'd trained together at the academy. Danny, it's Jack Hayes. Stand down. Silence. Then, Hayes. Jack Hayes? You're listed as killed in action. We saw your fighter go down. I survived. Long story. I'm aboard a Verath diplomatic shuttle with Princess Lyra Theon. She's requesting permission to dock and open formal talks. Another pause. Longer this time. Jack could imagine the chaos on Defiance Bridge. Protocol had no provisions for this. Commander, we're not authorized to negotiate with alien powers, especially not the Verath. They stayed neutral while we were getting slaughtered. Lyra's expression didn't change, but Jack saw the slight tension in her shoulders. I know, Danny. But she pulled me out of the wreckage, saved my life, and she's offering something we desperately need. Allies. Real allies with technology and resources. Jack kept his voice steady. Let us dock. Take us to Admiral Kate Ramos. Let her make the call. More silence. Then hold position. I'm contacting Fleet Command. The channel closed. Lyra guided the shuttle to a stop relative to the destroyers. They hung in space, waiting. Admiral Ramos, Lyra said quietly. I've read about her. She commanded the defense of Luna Base, held against impossible odds for 6 months. She lost her husband and both sons in that siege, Jack said. She's not going to be friendly. I don't expect friendly. I expect professional. 20 minutes passed. Then the channel opened again. Commander Hayes, Admiral Ramos has authorized your docking. Bay 3 on the Defiant, but understand this. Danny's voice was hard now. You'll both be under armed escort. Any hostile action will be met with immediate lethal force. Understood, Jack replied. Lyra maneuvered the shuttle toward the Defiant's docking bay. As they approached, Jack could see the damage up close. This ship had taken hits that should have destroyed it. Whole sections were exposed to space, sealed with emergency plating. Gun emplacements were melted slag. But it was still flying, still fighting. They should have abandoned this vessel, Lyra observed. The structural damage is catastrophic. We don't abandon ships while they can still shoot, even when staying aboard risks the crew's lives. Especially then. That ship saved thousands of people. We honor that. Lyra didn't respond, but something in her expression shifted. Docking bay was scarred and scorched. 24 Marines waited in full combat armor, weapons raised. As the shuttle settled, Jack saw more crew members watching from elevated positions. Every gun in the bay was pointed at them. Stay behind me, Jack said as the hatch opened. I'm not hiding behind you, Commander. Then stay beside me. And don't make any sudden moves. They descended the ramp together. The Marines tensed. Jack raised his good hand slowly, keeping the other against his splinted arm. Stand down. She's not a threat. With respect, sir, we'll determine that. A lieutenant stepped forward. Female, young, with burn scars on her neck. Princess Lyra, you and Commander Hayes will follow us to the conference room. Keep your hands visible at all times. Lyra inclined her head. Of course, Lieutenant. They moved through corridors that still smelled like fire and blood. Crew members stopped and stared, some with curiosity, most with open hostility. One young pilot spat on the deck as they passed. Your people hate me, Lyra said quietly. Your people watched ours die for 3 years. Yeah, there's going to be hate, even though we're offering alliance now, especially because of that. Makes it look like you waited to see who'd win. Lyra was silent for a moment. That's exactly what we did. I know, so do they. The conference room was barely more than a closet, a metal table, uncomfortable chairs, and standing at the head of the table, Admiral Kate Ramos. She was smaller than Jack remembered, older. Gray hair pulled back tight, eyes that had seen too much death. Commander Hayes, her voice was flat. Glad you're alive. Thank you, Admiral. Don't thank me yet. You've brought an alien dignitary onto my ship during a recovery operation without authorization or clearance. She turned those hard eyes to Lyra. Princess Lyra Theon. Your collective stayed neutral while 16 billion humans died, while children burned, while colonies were glassed. Now you show up offering friendship. Tell me why I shouldn't have you thrown in the brig and your ship impounded. Lyra met her gaze steadily. Because you need what I'm offering, and because I can help you find the one thing you want most. Ramos's expression didn't change. And what's that? Justice, Lyra said. The Krell are broken but not destroyed. Their command structure survived. The ones who ordered the attacks on your worlds, who planned the genocide of your species. They're still alive, still free. She placed a data crystal on the table. I know where they are. Asterisk field name. The Princess Queen discovers the human warrior who won the war. .txt. Ramos stared at the crystal like it might explode. Her hand moved toward it, then stopped. Why would you give us this? What do you want in return? To see what humanity does with it, Lyra said simply. To understand who you truly are when given the choice between vengeance and mercy. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. Lyra remained standing, her posture relaxed despite the armed guards. The Verath Collective needs to know if humanity will be a stabilizing force in this region or a destabilizing one. Your actions in the next weeks will determine our relationship. Jack! Watched Ramos carefully, saw the tension in her jaw, the white knuckles as her hands gripped the table edge. She'd lost everything to the Krell. Everyone. And now she had the location of the ones responsible. Admiral, Jack said quietly. Maybe we should look at the data first. Ramos picked up the crystal with trembling fingers, inserted it into the table's hollow projector. The room filled with three-dimensional star charts, a remote system barely explored. And there, highlighted in red, a hidden station. The Krell High Command evacuated here when the war turned, Lyra explained. 47 senior commanders, including Supreme Commander Thax, who personally ordered the assault on Earth. They believe they're safe, that humanity lacks the resources to hunt them down while rebuilding. How did you get this intelligence? Ramos demanded. We've had listening posts in Krell space for centuries. They never detected them. We know their communications, their movements, their weaknesses. Lyra gestured and the hologram zoomed in on the station. This facility is lightly defended. Most of their military assets were destroyed. If you moved quickly, you could take it with minimal losses and kill everyone responsible for the genocide. Ramos's voice was barely a whisper. Or capture them, put them on trial. Show the galaxy that humanity believes in justice, not just revenge. Lyra paused. Either choice tells us who you are. Ramos closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were wet. Do you know what they did to Luna Base? The Krell landed troops. went dome to dome, killed civilians in their homes, children in schools. They made us watch before they attacked the military sections, forced us to see our families die while we were powerless to stop it. I know, Lyra said softly. I watched the footage. It was horrific. Horrific doesn't cover it. Ramos's voice broke slightly. My youngest son was 7. They shot him in front of his classroom, made the other children watch. Then they killed the teacher. Then the rest of the class, one by one, taking their time. The room was absolutely silent. So when you ask me to choose between vengeance and mercy, Ramos continued, understand that you're asking me to show mercy to the creatures who murdered my baby, who made him afraid in his last moments, who ended everything he could have been. Lyra's expression remained steady, but Jack saw something in her eyes. Genuine pain. I do understand. Better than you know. Do you? Do you really? Ramos slammed her hand on the table. Has your species ever faced extinction? Ever watched your children burn? Yes. Lyra's voice was quiet but firm. 4,000 years ago, the Varath were nearly destroyed by the Kuhl Dominion. They killed 90% of our population. Enslaved the rest. We spent 800 years as their servants before we finally broke free and drove them out. Ramos stopped. I didn't know that. Few do. We don't speak of it often. The shame is still fresh, even after millennia. Lyra moved around the table slowly. But I'll tell you what we did when we finally won. When we had the call commanders cornered and helpless, we executed them. Every single one. Made it public. Made it brutal. Told ourselves it was justice. It was justice. But it didn't bring back the dead. Didn't heal the trauma. And it poisoned us for generations. We became cruel. Paranoid. We closed ourselves off from the galaxy because we saw potential enemies everywhere. It took us 2,000 years to recover from what that vengeance did to our culture. Ramos sat down heavily. So you're saying we should let them live? Forgive them? I'm saying you should choose consciously, with full understanding of the consequences. Lyra placed both hands on the table. If you execute them, I won't judge. The Varath have no moral authority to condemn that choice. But if you put them on trial, if you show the galaxy that humanity values law even when law is difficult, you'll earn something more valuable than revenge. You'll earn respect, trust, the foundation for real alliances. Jack finally spoke. Admiral, whatever you decide, the fleet will follow. But maybe we should bring this to the civilian government. Let them make the call. The civilian government is barely functioning. Half of Earth's leadership is dead. The colonies are in chaos. We're holding things together with military authority alone. Ramos looked at the hologram again. This station. The commanders. The ones responsible. This decision falls to us. To me. She stood and walked to the viewport. Beyond the scarred hull of the Defiant, the rescue ships were still searching, still looking for survivors among the debris. Human ships that had chosen to save rather than destroy when the fighting ended. Paul Griffin helped Krell civilians, Ramos said. I read the report, thought he was an idiot, soft. But then I realized something. He wasn't being soft. He was being strong. Strong enough to stop hating when hate was easier. She turned back to face them. I want those commanders captured alive. I want them brought to Earth. I want public trials with full transparency, evidence, testimony, legal process. Her voice hardened. And then I want them executed, legally. After the galaxy sees exactly what they did and why they deserve to die. Lyra inclined her head. That is your right. But first we need to catch them, and my fleet is scattered. Damaged. We need help. Ramos looked directly at Lyra. What are you offering beyond intelligence? Ships, technology, tactical support. The Varath fleet can help corner them. Make sure none escape. In exchange for what? Formal diplomatic relations, trade negotiations, a mutual defense pact. Lyra paused. And one more thing. I want to be there. On the mission. To witness how humanity conducts itself in victory. Ramos actually smiled. It wasn't a happy expression. You want to see if we're worthy? I want to see if we can trust each other. Fine. You can come, but you follow my orders. My rules. And if things go wrong, I'm not risking my people to save you. I wouldn't expect you to. Ramos extended her hand across the table. Lyra looked at it for a moment, then clasped it. Human and Veraf, former neutral and desperate survivor, shaking hands over a plan to capture war criminals. Jack exhaled slowly. This was actually happening. Commander Hayes, Ramos said, you're staying on the Defiant. I need your tactical assessment of that station. We move in 72 hours. Yes, Admiral. Lyra released Ramos' hand. I'll return to my flagship. Bring back support vessels. We'll coordinate our approach. See that you do. And Princess! Ramos's voice was cold again. Is it a trap? If you're leading us into an ambush, I will personally make sure the Vereth Collective regrets it for the next 10,000 years. Lyra's expression didn't change. Noted, Admiral. But it's not a trap. I promise you that. She left with her escort. Jack watched her go, then turned to find Ramos staring at him. Do you trust her? The Admiral asked. I think so. Yeah? Think or no? No. She could have let me die. Didn't. She could have kept this intelligence to herself. Didn't. She's taking a risk by helping us. Ramos nodded slowly. Then let's make sure her risk pays off. For all of us. Asterisk Feelmame. The Princess Queen discovers the human warrior who won the war.